title of the chapter is On a Hill Far Away, the problem of black male death in black Christianity. The chapter begins with an analysis of a biblical story. And that biblical story is told to us in the Gospel according to John chapter 9, verses 1 through 3. There, we are told that Jesus is with his disciples, and that when he's with his disciples, they see a man who had been born blind from birth. When they see this man, in verse 2, the disciples say to Jesus, "Who did sin, this man or his parents, that he was born blind?" Now, here is where the paper really sort of generates, right? The paper really comes from this one simple question that the disciples ask Jesus. When the disciples see this man who was born blind, they ask a question that presupposes some sort of moral failing as a first principle of his physical disability. In other words, they are assuming that because he is blind, he must have done something wrong. This was a prevailing cultural attitude in first century Palestine, such that if you did have a physical disability like this man who was born blind, it was understood in the community that you had some sort of moral failing that led you to be disabled, right? This is a crude articulation of what philosophers call the principle of sufficient reason, which says that everything that exists has to exist for some reason. So if you were born blind, you must have done something wrong. As a result of this cultural and social perception, this man's humanity is completely ignored, and instead he becomes a mere walking billboard for the latest social and cultural theories about his condition. His humanity, his hopes, his dreams, his aspirations, his likes, his dislikes, his soul, his inner life is completely ignored because everybody has a theory about why he was born blind. The aim of this book chapter is to show that the man born blind in this story in John's gospel is in a social and cultural position akin to that of black men in American Christendom, which is to say that even as the man in the story, the man who was born blind in the story is incessantly pathologized and theorized about, this is what happens to black men in contemporary American Christendom. There is an excess of theologizing, an excess of pathologizing, such that even if the man born blind had spoken up, anything he said would have been dismissed ad hominem as the speech of one who's unworthy to speak because of his culturally generated and society and theologically diagnosed disorder. So this man is unable to speak for himself, right?
Right.
His overall emotional and psychological well-being, his manhood, his person, his joys, his pain, all of this languishes deep beneath a carapace of one socially and culturally popular, but empirically unsupported and scientifically specious theoretical account of his being after another. And when the disciples ask the question to Jesus, they are simply demonstrating the latest attempt to heap yet another theory upon this man that would only serve to further burden and dehumanize him rather than recognize his humanity. This, I argue in the chapter, is a literary representation, a biblical articulation of the current position of Black men in American Christendom. They are subjected to a relentless barrage of fashionable but empirically unsupported and scientifically specious theories that completely occlude any meaningful consideration of their humanity. And the tragedy is that this happens in the context of an ecclesial community, which is supposed to be there as a means of spiritual refreshing and healing and comfort. And yet it becomes a tragic space in which the Black man is made to think from pulpit and pew that something is wrong with him. This, I argue, happens in two ways. First, it happens through a misguided theological interpretation of the Christ figure that results in forms of masculinity that are preached and held up as utopian standards that are essentially unattainable, right? So here I draw from the work of womanist theologian Dolores Williams and the work of Ronald Neal, a religion scholar. And then the second way that this happens to Black men is through the wholesale adoption of intersectional feminism by feminist theologian Elizabeth Schussler Fiorenza and her notion of chiriarchy, which she argues is a way of accounting for the multiplicity of forms of oppression that she believes exist in the church and in society.